Good evening, everyone. So my name is Bill Plunkett. I'm the Director of Guidance here at Staples, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our college kickoff night for juniors and families. We're grateful that you took the time to come out tonight and hope that you find our program to be helpful. Students, we care a whole lot about you guys and are invested in making sure that the next year and a half at Staples goes as well as possible for you, and that we do all we can to support you in making sure that you're prepared for whatever it is that your future does hold. Some of what we'll cover tonight you may find familiar and remember being touched on when we met with you in December through your physical education classes. We want you and your parents to hear that same information so that you can use what you learn as sort of a common starting point for conversations at home. We're fortunate we have a lot of experience on our staff, and having worked with as many families as we have over the years, we know how essential it is for students and families to have an open, trusting, and respectful dialogue at home. Students, you're going to hear us emphasize how this really is your process, and we're going to support you in that. At the same time, it's important to know that there are adults in your life to turn to and who can provide invaluable experience, perspective, and help along the way. As you listen to the presentation tonight, remember that we're speaking in rather general terms as an overview to start, and yet we value the fact that each individual student's situation and post-high school planning process is completely unique. You may be in a very different place right now from the family sitting next to you and move at a different pace, and that's 100% okay. Your interests, your goals, your strengths, and your needs are yours alone. We get how hard it is for parents and for students to not get swept up in what everyone else is doing or preaching is the right approach. But we've seen time and again that if you focus on what is best for you, you're going to find that things do have a way of working out in the end. Moving forward, we'll soon be starting to meet with each junior and their family individually to discuss where you are in thinking about your future, what's important to you, and what you can do to get where you want to be. Ultimately, what we want is for you to find the right fit for after Staples, academically, but also personally and financially, and you'll hear us emphasize that tonight. So you received some materials at the door, including our presentation notes and a post-high school planning guide. Use this resource. It has answers to many of the questions that I know that you'll have throughout the process, as does our website, Naviance, and the many, many emails that you'll be receiving from me in the months ahead. If it's helpful to you to go back and see again, or if you have friends who couldn't make it tonight, we are filming this program and we'll email out a link probably at some point next week. A big thanks to Mr. Jim Honeycutt, who some of your siblings may have had as a media teacher back in the day and is filming tonight's program. So while this is college kickoff night and that will be our focus for tonight, it's important that we highlight the range of options that are available to students after Staples. This is a major component of the Westport Public Schools strategic plan, and it's something that we're deeply committed to as a guidance department, honoring all pathways to success and not just a four-year college. There are numerous pursuits and careers in healthcare, technology, operations, transportation, the building trades that do not require a four-year degree. And as you advance in these careers, there's nothing stopping you from pursuing a college degree as an adult learner when it better suits you. Some people may just not be ready for college until later in life. So what if you are not college-bound right after high school? What are some of your alternatives? Learn a trade through an apprenticeship. For example, one of our recent high school graduates did a senior internship at Staples for an electrician, and that turned into an apprenticeship opportunity. He researched and was awarded a $10,000 work ethics scholarship from the MicroWorks Foundation. This foundation has collaborated with This Old House to help close the skills gap by encouraging young people to master the vocational trades that built this country, including carpentry, construction, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. Get a job. Nothing helps more than the transition to adulthood than holding down a full-time job. Volunteer. While you're trying to find your place in the world, why not spend time making a difference? Travel. If all you can think about is getting out of town and exploring some other part of the world, then traveling may be for you. It's a great way to experience other cultures and learn about yourself. Every year we have students who are doing meaningful gap years doing something like that. Attend community college or vocational school. A great way to ease into college and explore more about what you want to do in life is in taking one or more classes at a local community college or technical school. Classes cost much less, and many students work at least part-time while attending. Join the military. While not always the most popular or safe choice from Staples, joining the military can be a great way to learn about yourself, serve your country, and earn money toward a future college education. There are plenty of resources to support students who wish to investigate and or pursue any of these opportunities. This April, we'll hold another fair right out in the auditorium lobby where you can learn about a lot of these options. College and Career Center has many resources, and we're always making connections with various local organizations and industries that could help students in pursuing some of these paths. So you're going to hear from each of the school counselors regarding aspects of the college search and application process tonight, followed by a couple of seniors who are going to speak about their experience over the past year or so. Then we'll move to breakout sessions where you can answer questions of your individual school counselor. Just going to leave you with some statistics from our most recent graduated class. So each year we survey the seniors and ask them all sorts of questions about what their experience has been like going through junior and senior year and navigating the college process and thinking about what their life is going to look like for after high school, and then their feelings towards towards what they're going to be pursuing. Each year the statistics are remarkably the same, that we really do find that students are successful and go through, and the vast majority are going to schools that they feel really good about or pursuing things that they go on to love. So we hope that you enjoyed tonight's program, and thanks again for coming.
Good evening, I'm Trish Howells, and tonight I'll be speaking to you about components of building your college list. So what goes into developing a college list? While many families may want to focus on a college's rank and selectivity, it is so important to consider many factors, additional factors that go into building a list of schools that is the best fit for you. We encourage you to think about the size of a school. Will you learn best in a large lecture hall style like this, or would you be better off in a small discussion-based classroom setting? Think about location. Do you want to drive home on a short holiday weekend, or would you be okay with traveling home possibly once in the school year if you're a plane ride away? Also think about the cost of that traveling to that far distance. Is that something that financially you're equipped to do? As far as location, do you want to be in a city, or do you want to be in a small college town? Think about the overall college cost. Now is the time to have an open conversation within the family about the cost of college. It is important to do this now before getting attached to a list of schools that may not be affordable in the long run. If you come away with loans, what is the size loan you would be willing to commit yourself to for 10 years after you graduate college? And might you earn a master's degree after your undergraduate? Is that going to influence your financial decision on the college that you choose for your undergraduate degree? Think about majors, sports, arts, theater, any specific program that you'd like to explore in the college of your choice. We strongly suggest students take tours of local campuses, even if these are schools that you may not actually apply to. Just go to Fairfield, a small suburban town, go to NYU or Pace in the city, go to UConn, a larger campus in a rural setting. Building a list of colleges goes much further than name and rank. Of the schools that you research, one will be your home away from home for 4 years, so it is important to find a school that fits who you are and how you learn best. As you build your list, we encourage you to have what we call a balanced list. This means you will ultimately have a nice combination of reach, target, and likely schools. When you begin your research, you can easily have 15 to 20 schools that you'd like to visit over the spring and summer. But our goal for you is to come back in the fall and have 6 to 8 sure schools that you're ready to apply to. Of these, we recommend a couple will be reach and likely, but most will be your target range. What we urge students not to do is to invest all of their time in their reach schools and put little thought into their likely schools. We encourage you to put equal thought and effort into campus visits, contact, and research for all of the schools on your list. The most important thing to keep in mind is that of those schools you apply to, you know and feel that you will actually attend each of those schools that you're admitted to. This is a very exciting time for you, and we're looking so forward to helping you get started on creating a well-balanced list, and that's a good fit for you and your student.
Hi, everyone. So I am Katrina Zychek. I am a school counseling intern this year. I'm here for the 2018-2019 school year at Staples. I am a graduate student. I'm getting my master's in school counseling, and I have 1 semester to go, and I'm really happy to be here at Staples this year. So in terms of college visits, visiting colleges is the best way to get a real feel for the campus, see the facilities, and hopefully get a sense for whether or not it's a place your child can see themselves. So we allow 2 pre-planned excused absences for students to be able to visit schools, and going during a school break is also a good option. So the easiest way to set up a tour is to go on the college's website and schedule an appointment. Oftentimes, admissions officers will have their emails and phone numbers listed on the website, so that's another way you can schedule a tour or like an interview if you feel that that's a good option for you. On the tour, students should be prepared to ask a lot of questions of their tour guide and other students on campus. And like I said, if there's a college your student's particularly interested in, you might want to consider setting up an interview with an admissions officer, because we know that, the physical application, it doesn't always provide, everything there is to know about a person. So putting, a face to the name can be valuable. So ultimately, visiting is about finding the right fit, and sometimes seeing and being on campus is the best way to determine what you're looking for in a college experience. And I believe our student ambassadors will also speak more about their visiting experiences, so stay tuned for that. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Naviance by now. Just to remind you, Naviance is a web-based program that is an extremely useful tool to help make informed decisions about colleges. So it incorporates historical and statistical data specifically about Staples students, so that when you look at admissions statistics, it's more relevant to your child as a Staples student. So if you all take a look behind me, there's a scattergram up in the corner. And all the little dots on the scattergram, they represent individual Staples students who have applied to a particular college over the past 3 years. So the data goes back 3 years for these scattergrams. And you can see that the graph shows where they fall based on their academic GPA, which is their weighted GPA. So it takes into account all the different levels of classes that they're taking. And their SAT or ACT scores. Now, in juniors' case, their PSAT scores will be what these results are generated based on, but as they take the SAT or ACT and these scores come in, it will update. So we recommend that students avoid measuring their chances of getting into a college based solely on national data. Instead, looking at their chances in the context of Staples applicants is a better reference for determining their reach, target, and likely schools, which Ms. Howells just described to you. So in addition to looking up specific schools on Naviance, we recently went into PE classes to teach the students how to use the college search tool. And that generates a list of colleges based on a variety of specific criteria, which students can go in and manually enter. And it's pretty interesting, and you might be able to find a school that's a really great fit for you using that criteria that you had never heard of before. So just a few additional things you can use Naviance for. College representative visits are listed on there during the fall, as are links to various scholarship applications. And high school transcripts and recommendations are also sent to colleges through Naviance. And if you need assistance navigating Naviance and you couldn't make it to the in-person parent training, there is a parent training on the Naviance website. And students and parents share an account with the same username and password. So if you need help with that, you can contact Ms. Stoller in the College and Career Center, and she could reset the password for you very easily. So, a nice transition. So the College and Career Center, it is adjacent to the guidance office. So you go in through the main doors of the guidance office, and then you turn left, and it's right down the hall. You don't have to make an appointment with Ms. Stoller. She is our college and career counselor here. So you can drop in any time for any reason. Her door's always open. In the College and Career Center, computers are available for college and career research and schoolwork. If you don't have a laptop, it's a good option to go in there and use the computers. Guidance library books are available for students to use during school hours, and they also have the option to check them out for use at home. And then the job bank can be found on the guidance website under the College and Career Center tab. And this is essentially a list of local businesses and companies in the area that are specifically looking to hire high school students. So you likely won't be competing with college students or anything like that. So I suggest if you want some work experience, take a look at that. And then once a student is hired, they can come to see Ms. Stoller in the College and Career Center to get their working papers, and these will serve as proof of employment. So sometime during winter of senior year, the College and Career Center hosts a scholarship workshop. And as I mentioned previously, scholarships can also be found on Naviance. Additionally, students who need help completing the FAFSA and understanding their financial aid options can visit Ms. Stoller at any time. And she also, along with Mrs. Banks, offers one-on-one and help in small groups. If you need help with FAFSA or if you want to explore financial aid options, they do that in the fall, and that's also very helpful. So college representative visits, they're offered in the fall. Dates and times for these visits will be available on Naviance starting in the fall, so I'd say like August, September. Go on there daily, because there will be, through like November, there will be college representatives in the College and Career Center every day for almost every period a day. So be on the lookout for that. And in terms of exploring post-high school options, so Ms. Stoller does host a fair in the spring during lunch waves. The College and Career Center invites representatives from local community college and technical schools to talk to students about post-high school options outside of four-year colleges. And then a couple of additional workshops that are offered. A Common App and Coalition App workshop is offered during both fall and spring. And in the spring, an essay writing workshop is offered in which a local admissions officer comes in to provide students with tips and tricks for writing a college essay that pops. And I have not witnessed it myself, but I've heard that that's a very popular workshop. So check that out. That's my spiel. Thanks.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Leslie Hammer, one of the school counselors. So as you can see from this dense slide, college admissions offices take into consideration many different components as they consider the applicants. I'll just give you a quick overview of these now because we'll be talking about each of them in greater depth later this evening. The most important of these factors are the first two bullet points. These are, students, the courses that you've been taking and the difficulty of those classes and how well you've done in them since your freshman year. Taken all together, these are a college's best indicator of your ability to do college-level work and the best predictor of your future academic success. Grades have always been important in college admissions, but we've recently come across an interesting trend. The National Association of College Admissions Counselors regularly surveys admissions offices, and what they've recently reported is that while about half of colleges 10 years ago said that grades in all courses, both academic and electives, had considerable influence on their admissions decision, that percentage of colleges is now over 81%, saying that this is by far the most important thing for them to consider. After your grades and the curriculum, most of the rest of the items on this list are the specific components of the application process. So the majority of colleges still want to see standardized test scores, and since, of course, the SAT is now a state-mandated graduation requirement, virtually all of our students will be taking the SAT and/or the ACT. Colleges do not favor one test over the other. Interestingly, though, a decade ago, 59% of colleges reported that test scores were considerably important to them. That number has actually dropped recently, so now only about half are reporting that, and this is really consistent with the movement that we're seeing towards colleges being very open to considering test optional applications, even some of the most highly selective universities in the country. Colleges also want to see that you can write well, so they will almost always require a personal narrative or an essay of some sort. This is a chance for them to get to know more about you as a person, and it's an opportunity for your own voice to come through in the application. Colleges may also ask you for smaller supplemental essays or a writing sample. This could be in the form of a graded paper, so hang on to one that you're proud of. Colleges also look at all of the other things that you do outside of academics, such as your involvement with the arts, sports, clubs, paid employment, volunteering commitments. Please know that you don't need to do all of those things. There really aren't enough hours in the day, but focus on the activities that you truly do enjoy and that are the most meaningful for you. Colleges will read recommendation letters written by your counselor and typically by one or two of your academic teachers, usually from your junior year. They'll also do their best to get a sense of how interested you actually are in their school and therefore how likely you would be to attend if you were admitted. You can demonstrate your interest by visiting campuses, by interviewing if that's an option, and by meeting with college representatives in our College and Career Center when they visit Staples in the fall. Finally, there will always be factors that are completely out of your control. It's widely agreed upon that diverse learning communities foster broader perspectives, deeper understanding, and empathy and cooperation. So diversity of all kinds, including geographic, gender, ethnicity, may also come into play, and you really don't have much control over that. Higher education, also, as we know, is a business, and most universities do need to watch the bottom line. So because of this, most colleges will need to take into account also a student's ability to pay. And finally, there may be institutional priorities that we will never know anything about at all. The school may be looking for students for a brand new dance program the following year, or a specific major that's been under-enrolled, or maybe their only bassoon player is graduating. These needs will vary from school to school, from year to year. It's very, very difficult to try to game the system in this way and really not worth the effort at all. So, this slide is probably more of a refresher for you, as we've talked about it in the past. A Staples High School transcript displays two different GPAs on it. The academic GPA reflects the cumulative weighted grade point average for all academic classes, so English, social studies, math, science, and world languages. The overall GPA includes the academic subjects plus physical education, art classes, and other elective courses as well. It's not weighted. GPAs are recalculated only at the end of each semester using the final grades at that point. Sometimes there's confusion around why a GPA that's shown on the report card doesn't match the one that you'll see on your transcript or in Naviance. This is because the report card shows only the overall GPA for that single quarter only. It's not cumulative. A little side note concerning GPAs, we often find that students and families place way too much importance on this one number. There is no magic GPA for any given school, and colleges often will recalculate a Staples GPA anyway, using a different scale and weighting in an effort to, because they're comparing applicants from a wide array of high schools. So just keep that in mind. I'd also like to share with you some feedback that we received from a couple of admissions officers last year concerning GPAs specifically. This first quote is from a moderately selective private university, and they said, "The GPA is always considered within the context of the transcript overall, the grades themselves, course selection, and choices and progression." And I also think you'll really appreciate this message from a public flagship university in the South. They said, "We employ a transcript-focused approach as part of a holistic review, evaluating student performance in relation to the specific courses taken. Staples students are fantastic applicants who take full advantage of the many amazing course offerings available to them. We love our Staples applicants." So, okay, yay! We do. So here we are, not quite halfway through junior year, and before long, you'll start planning for senior year. The program of studies, formerly known as the course catalog, will be online shortly, and I would encourage you to really read through it. We have such a broad range of wonderful electives and new academic courses for next year. And as a senior, you may find that you have a bit more room in your schedule to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. Your teachers will soon begin to input their course recommendations for you. Then, for the first time ever at Staples, you will be able to select and make your course requests yourself through PowerSchool. Instructions regarding how this works will be coming soon. Once you've taken the opportunity to put in those requests, you'll meet one-on-one with your own counselor to finalize your senior schedule in February. Your counselor will work with you to make sure that you're on track to fulfill all of your graduation requirements and to help you to choose an overall schedule that's appropriately challenging for you. That also takes into account your goals and your interests, and at the same time, hopefully allows you the ability to balance all of your other commitments, including, we always hope, some time to relax with your friends and family and get a good night's sleep, more often than not. In the fall, when your transcript is sent to the colleges you will be applying to, it will list your final grades through junior year, as well as your courses, all the courses in progress for senior year. So please, when you're scheduling, keep the big picture in mind, and remember that course changes likely will not be able to be made next year. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is PJ Washenko, and I get to talk about exciting standardized testing. So as Mrs. Hamber was mentioning before, many of your students may have to sit for an SAT or an ACT because it is still required by many of the colleges out there. The tests do differ from when you compare them side by side just a bit, but they're viewed the same way. There's not a college that favors one or the other, so a lot of times it's based off of comfort and really just where your student can perform best on these types of tests. So it's worth it to understand the test a little bit more, look at some of the details, what's going to be asked on the test, the material that it does get covered on those exams. Many of your students may have taken the PSAT already this past October, or maybe they took it as a sophomore last year, so they've got a sense of what an SAT looks like. ACT, again, it's going to be a little bit different. You may have to see if there's like a practice test out there. Sometimes there's like testing companies that offer like a free ACT, just as a diagnostic to see if that's something that is a good fit for you. Just to watch out for that. They always like to try to fit in the prep services after that, after you take their free ACT or SAT. So that might be something that comes after a free test. So just be aware. Another type of testing that you may see out there, it's only, as of right now, only required by 5 colleges in the country, is the SAT subject test. It's a 1-hour subject test that is benefiting students if they're going to take it in the late spring when they've taken a Staples course related to that. So some of the subject areas are posted up here. But it's always worth it to have a conversation with the teacher or the counselor just to make sure that that's an appropriate thing to be doing, because many colleges don't want it or don't need it. But if it's a piece of testing you feel like might help benefit with the review process, then that could be something that could be worth sitting for, but making sure that they're ready for it, you're going to have a good amount of prep for it, and just to make sure that, again, they're going to score the best they can to be able to add that to the application process. But more often than not, it's not required, it's not needed, so many students don't have to worry about that. If testing is not your thing for students, there's over 1,000 schools that are actually test optional. So with all the components that Ms. Hammer was mentioning, transcript, GPA, recommendations, essay within the application, a lot of colleges just view that testing is not that important. They could have other pieces of the application process that's more important to them. So if testing may do more harm than good, it may be something you don't have to worry about. So again, a nice conversation to have with the counselor just to make sure that, is this something you need to plan for? Is this something you have to schedule for going forward? And then also, registering for the test, we tell all of our students and families that students need to register with their full legal name. A lot of times we run into issues when maybe they go by their middle name at Staples, but when they go to register for a test, they go by their official name, and then there's information that's going to mismatch. The transcript says Jack, but the testing says John. So when a college sees that, they think it's two different people, regardless of it coming from the same school, the same birthday. They put it in two different files. It delays the process. It takes time to match the material up correctly. So it's important to make sure that everything that goes sent out to the college, transcripts, report cards, testing, all has the same name, application as well. So make sure it all does line up the right way when that time does come. And just for, testing going forward, we are a test site for SAT. We are not a test site for ACT. So these are some of the dates that are still going to be approaching for the rest of this year and the beginning of senior year as well. But you always want to take into account, what's going on that time of year. As a student, do you have enough time to actually do the prep you need to be ready for this test? Are you getting a textbook to kind of look over it yourself? Are you doing a prep class? Just to make sure that you can do your best on these tests. Some things that might be a distraction, do you have, spring sports, in June, finals, club activities, plays, performances, or something like that? You're going to have the time to really put your full attention into an exam like this. So it's important to kind of take into account the timing of the year. Maybe the spring isn't best, and you got to look at, end of summer or the beginning of the fall to take an exam, because it might be more appropriate to take it then. But as Ms. Hammer mentioned earlier, we do have the state SAT that's going to be on March 27th. All juniors are going to sit to take that. There's no registration that they need to do. The school takes care of it. But anything else before or after, there is an online registration that students would have to do. So you go to the testing sites, collegeboard.org for the SAT, and it's ACT.org for the ACT test. To create the account, register for the test, get your ticket, and then show up for the day of the exam. Thank you.
Got to bring it way down after PJ. But my name is Christina Banks, and I'm going to be talking about recommendations. Most colleges require teacher recommendations, but not all of them. Some require none, some require one, some require two. So we recommend that students go to each college's specific website to look at their requirements to see exactly what they're looking for. We do recommend that students ask two teachers if they'd be willing to write them a letter of recommendation for college in the spring. That way, whether if the college requires one or two or none, they'd be covered by asking those two teachers. The teachers write letters specifically to that student in their classroom. We recommend that students ask teachers from this year, so that's when they're in more advanced classes, and it's more recent to when you're going to be applying to school, so colleges are getting more recent information. Students should ask teachers who know you best, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a class with the teacher where you received an A. It could be a class where maybe you got a B or a C in a class, but you worked really hard. You met with the teacher outside of class for extra help sessions, and that would be great, for the colleges to know. It could be a class where, you helped other students in the class, or you really did some work outside independently because you had a love for the subject. That would be great for colleges to know about that from those teachers. Students just need to be asking two teachers by the end of the school year for letters. That's all they have to do for now. And then in the fall, they'll be following up with those teachers, and there'll be more information to follow once that comes closer with more information on what you have to do for that. For counselor recommendations, we write letters for all of our students that are going to be applying to college. And the letter that we write kind of provides a big picture of the student beyond your transcript, beyond your GPA, beyond your test scores. This is a time for us to really advocate for our students and really talk about your personal qualities, your strengths, maybe any anomalies in any grades and explaining those, maybe any special circumstances that came up, those type of things that make you unique that the colleges should know about. There's required questionnaires, one that the student would complete and one that the parent or guardian would complete, that aids the counselor with writing their recommendation letter. Those questionnaires would be completed in Naviance, and they're due in the fall. It really gives the counselor the perspective from the student and from the parent of the student's high school experience and what was important to them and any challenges that they had to overcome, and how they grow and develop throughout high school. So getting that perspective is helpful beyond like what the counselor is seeing as well. There are also student description forms that students can hand out in the spring, typically in May or in June, and those are utilized by the counselors to kind of aid their letter of recommendation and get more information about the student. That would be a form that the student can hand to like a former or current teacher. As long as that teacher is not writing their letter of recommendation, that would actually be sent to the colleges. It could be a coach, a club advisor, employer, volunteer coordinator, anyone that would have more information. So that way your counselor could be able to write that letter and quote something that that person had said. So if it was the coach, they could quote something that the coach had said and kind of get that athletic perspective and kind of give that general overview of the student, because the counselor wouldn't necessarily see that student on the athletic field. So it kind of just gives more information. There's also, some colleges may accept something called a supplemental letter. Not all colleges accept them, and it would be something that would be a letter that would go beyond like any teacher recommendations that went and the counselor recommendations. It would have to really be extra material that from someone that knows the student well. So it could be like that coach or the employer or a volunteer coordinator, and that person would be, the letter would go directly to the colleges. So that's what makes it different from the student description form, because the student description form goes to the counselor and we can quote something that that person had said. A supplemental letter would actually go directly to the college, and students would have to, check colleges' websites and see if that's something that a college would even accept, since it would be an additional letter that would be sent to the school. And just lastly, any recommendation letters that go to colleges are confidential, so they're not seen by students or by counselors or by parents or anything like that. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Leslie Spore, and I will be speaking with you about visual and performing arts and athletics. Students who are interested in pursuing art, music, film, theater, etc. in college should speak with their individual counselor. Students will most likely complete an application supplement in the process, as well as either audition, create a CD, DVD, electronic file, or present an art portfolio. Each individual college will clearly delineate their requirements and how to present the information on their website or application. Please be sure to check with each individual college. The websites listed on this PowerPoint slide can offer additional detailed information and advice as well. Students who are interested in participating in college athletics should speak with their individual counselor and coach. For students interested in D1 or D2 sports, they must register with the NCAA Eligibility Center to be sure that they are academically eligible. Please be assured that our students rarely have an eligibility issue. However, it's important to look at the planning guide for specific courses that have not been certified by the NCAA towards eligibility credit. Division III athletes do not need to register with the Eligibility Center. However, students should visit each college's athletic link on their website. Students can usually find prospective student athlete questionnaire or form to be completed on the college website athletic link. This usually facilitates communication between you and a potential college coach. Our guidance website offers valuable information for prospective college student athletes as well. This year, we will be offering a program called the Prospective College Athlete Night for students and parents, which will take place on Wednesday, March 27th, 6:30 to 8 in the Staples Auditorium. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Victoria Capozzi, and students who wish to ask for accommodations at the college or university level should, for now, make themselves aware of the bullet points listed on the screen, and more. Current Staples High School students who receive accommodations in school by way of a formalized plan, such as an IEP, if they're in ESOL, a health plan, or Section 504 plan, should take the time to consider whether it will be appropriate to ask for and utilize such accommodations at the college level. Notice I said, ask for. You see, ladies and gentlemen, at the college level, students must self-identify and provide relevant documentation to that college's Disability Resource Center, and the primary responsibility for this self-advocacy and arranging these accommodations belongs to the student, which is different at high school. because this is a change from high school, whereas a student is identified by the school and supported by parents and teachers, and the primary responsibility for arranging the accommodations belongs to the school. So there is a difference. So, kids, if you're not able to identify or name the reason why you are the owner of one of these plans, now is the time to sit with your folks or your school counselor to learn, understand, and get to know the name of your diagnosed, for lack of better words, impairment and how it impacts your learning. Now is a good time to practice the self-advocacy and identification needed in college and life after high school. A good next step is to visit the Staples High School website, as you've been hearing a lot today, and download or print the Learning Differences in Post-High School Planning Process Guide. This document provides detailed information that one can tailor to their own needs, should this be appropriate for you. The guide will expand upon understanding the differences between high school and college support services, as well as the different levels of support potentially offered at college or university. In general, there are 3 levels of support. The most comprehensive level of support usually, but not always, requires a separate application to the individual program, and that is in addition to the general admission application to the college, and potentially an additional fee. Once accepted to the program, students have access to a full support staff team and could be monitored frequently. Proactive and structured support is usually individualized and laid out for each student's needs. 2 examples of comprehensive support programs are Marist College's Learning Support Program and the Strategic Alternative Learning Technique Center, also known as the SALT Center at the University of Arizona. A program with moderate levels of support are less structured than, of course, the comprehensive program. But this less structured level of support is offered to students who have already been admitted to the college or university. A college or university can potentially offer an array of services once documentation is provided and the admitted student self-refers to the Office of Disabilities. Most, if not all, colleges and universities have an Office of Disabilities and can offer some level of support. Each college, however, will differ, and it is up to you to research in advance the office's staff and student ratios and what accommodations they are equipped to offer. And that is done by each individual college's website. Lastly, minimal levels of support are typically offered to all students. These usually come in the form of a writing center, a tutoring center, a career and counseling center, a social emotional support center, health center, and so much more. So, if you're a student who feels it will be important or necessary to carry your current accommodations to college, I suggest that you add a column on your organizational chart or spreadsheet to reflect the level of support services versus your own needs, at the colleges versus your own needs. And lastly, folks, research has shown that students with learning disabilities who attend academic support centers were more likely to have higher grades and to have higher rates of retention at college.
Hello, I am Tom Brown. So financial aid is becoming a much larger conversation as the years go on and currently as the stock market slowly declines. I think this is something that is a hard conversation. College is very exciting to think about, the education, the opportunities, going places, the students that are going to be there, but talking about what it all costs can be really challenging. And so unfortunately, we find that that's a conversation that's put off longer than it should. We encourage families to have that conversation if it is a big part of the decision in college admissions at the very start as you're making the initial college list. That can be part of what you're doing when looking at colleges and considering them, considering what kind of scholarships they have, considering what kind of financial aid support is available. And doing that early on so that you don't come through college applications, get accepted to a school, and then find out, sorry, we can't pay for this. No, now we have to go back and start over. when we're already at the end of the process. So certainly have that sooner rather than later. We have a few programs that we offer to help in providing information for that conversation. The first one's coming up at the end of this month, where we have a financial college consultant come. Beyond being just a really lovely, awesome, and engaging guy, he's really nice, he has so much information. He also meets with us each year and gives us a presentation as counselors, and every time it's just amazing how much he knows and how much he can help guide the process of choosing a school based on the cost, how to navigate once you're already decided on a school, how to pay for that school, and also how to read and look at the financial aid opportunities that are out there, because there's such a vast variety of scholarships and loans and grants and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot to take in, so he has a lot of great information about that. And then again, in the fall, we'll have another person come in to go over the very different financial aid opportunities that are out there. One's called the FAFSA, which is the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And the other one is the CSS Profile. The FAFSA is used by pretty much all public schools, and private schools use it as well. But some private schools like to use the CSS Profile because it looks at a few different things. So you might have to fill that out separately if your student's looking at a private school. And scholarships will be available senior year. You'll see those in Naviance, and we'll tell you more about that in the future, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Senior year scholarships start becoming available. All right, so we just gave you a whole ton of information, a lot of things to think about, a lot to take in. So right now we're gonna ask the students to step up and pay attention for a little bit and say, what are you gonna do now, right? Second semester, junior year, you've been hearing all for the last 2.5 years, junior year is the year, junior year is the year, it's gonna be really tough, you got a lot to do. Well, you're halfway through it. We only have 2 weeks left, and it's already the end of the first semester, which is crazy. So what are you gonna do now? What do we expect from students to do? Keep working hard. I mean, your grades, as Ms. Hammer mentioned earlier, are among the most important things that colleges are looking at. So do what you need to do. Talk to your teachers. Get your assignments in. Study for your tests. Meet with your counselor if you need help. That's what we're here for. Generate your initial college list. So each of you will be set into meetings with your counselors. We'll help you with that process, but ultimately, students, that's for you. You're the ones that are going to college. None of the adults are going. We already did it. We went. We're done. It's your turn. So you need to make that list and be part of that process. Researching the colleges and looking at the campuses, paying attention, asking questions, being involved in your decision. And then determining the standardized test schedule, what Mr. Shanko talked about earlier. When do you want to take those tests? What do you have coming up in the near future? Make sure you're planning out, which is oftentimes hard for teenagers to do, so that's where parents can help. But you still need to work on making that schedule so that you know what's coming up. Developing your resume, that's something that we can certainly help you with in the counseling department. We started with you as sophomores last year. You may or may not remember, but you do have a resume started in Naviance, just saying. And consider which teachers this year. This is the year that the teachers you're working with are going to be writing your letters of recommendation. So it's important to think about which ones you have that relationship with, and if you don't have that relationship with any, you have another semester left to work on that relationship with those teachers. And the two last things that aren't written on the slide behind me that are becoming, well, one's not becoming, but I just think is important. Meet with your counselor. I've recently been starting sending out emails to the juniors who I never see, because great, you're doing awesome. Life is wonderful, but we still need to know about you. As you heard earlier, we write a recommendation letter for every single student. It's a lot easier and a lot better of a recommendation letter if I actually have had a conversation with you and know what's going on in your life. I can only do so much to get my students to come to see me, and when they come, you have to tell us things and talk to us about stuff. That's the most helpful we can be, the more information you give us. And the last one, you hear it all the time, and I'm going to say it again because it doesn't seem to stick. Social media. You have to pay attention to your social media. Google yourself. See what shows up. Make sure that you have gone through the pictures in your Facebook, your Instagram, whatever else you have out there. Change your usernames. Don't have them be things that are derogatory or even inside jokes. People are using those. Not necessarily college admissions as much, but scholarships are definitely more and more looking at social media to see if you are the candidate that you say that you are. So make sure that you take the time to look into that. Okay, I'm done preaching. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Deb Slocum, and I'm the tail end. I really cannot believe when I listen to this presentation the amount of material that we cover in 1 hour here. So I just want everyone to take a deep breath. And I want you to do that frequently over the next year, students and parents alike. In the past, when I've stood up here, I have rolled off a slew of statistics to reassure students and parents alike that there's tremendous college choices out there and that the college admissions process doesn't have to be this intimidating, draining, scary race to the finish. This year, I'm not going to do that. I'm just assuming that everyone here tonight understands that if students work reasonably hard at an excellent high school like Staples, plan realistically, and are organized, they will have choices. I've seen it for 19 years, and it consistently comes true. This access to further education in and of itself is a huge economic bonus for every student sitting here and a gift that's not available to many students in this country. Emotionally, it's a different kettle of fish. The conversations we've had with you over the last 2 years about adolescent brain development and the emphasis we put on finding the right fit based on personality, learning style, interests, and finances, somehow, boom, go right out the window if you're in the cafeteria and your friends are chatting about a certain school, or if you're at a cocktail party on the sidelines of the football game, and everyone's introducing their way of doing things and their person who's going to help their child get into the school. So once you're on that path of doubt, the search for a list of realistic colleges where your child or a student will thrive and fit in academically and socially can get lost in the elbowing to be accepted into a small number of highly selective colleges. This, despite all the statistics that have been printed saying that it's not where you go to college, it's what you actually make of the experience once you get there. So instead of focusing on all the moments where inevitable self-doubt is encountered, because you will have those moments, and those conversations will engender that, I'm going to share with you what we've learned from the families who've not only survived this process, but actually enjoyed aspects of it. Making sure, for example, to enjoy excellent food on all those college road trips. Research the restaurants. Here's some of the tips that they have shared with us. A healthy student-centered mindset from day one is critical. For students, don't waste time regretting who you are not and embrace who you are. For the parents, help your children to define the most important characteristics of a college match. Is it the major, the location, the college personality? No one college is right for everyone. How fortunate that at Staples, this is an individualized process. From the beginning, be realistic. Kids, know who you are academically and personally. If you have a grounded, practical mindset from day one, it will all flow from there. Number 3, keep your information private. Dodge the endless inquiries about where you're applying and what your GPA is. I don't know how it became okay to ask that stuff. Nobody would ever come up and ask me how much I weigh. That would be rude beyond measure, but they'll go up to any kid and ask them what their GPA is and where they're applying to college. That's personal information. Standard response I give to kids is, you can say, to lessen the stress, I've just decided to stay private about the process. And if they keep persisting, they're just rude. It's important to stay organized and get help when you need it. Break the process into manageable chunks. What makes it feel overwhelming is if you think about the whole process as 1.5 years long and not broken into pieces. The Staples Guidance Department has done our best to help you focus on what's important now. Second semester just needs to be about what Mr. Brown reviewed. Nobody needs to worry about the essay, okay? Nobody needs to worry. There's so many things you don't need to worry about. That's just go like this. Later. When you feel the incipient panic taking over because your best friend tells you they've already written their essay or has taken the ACT 4 times, remind yourself that earlier is not always better and that kids burn out easily. Remind yourself you're doing it at the right time for you. If you look at pages 5, 6, and 7 in this really pretty freaking amazing and underutilized guide, we break it into months, what you could be doing each month. You could highlight what you want and need to be doing each one of those months and put it on your refrigerator, and there you go. It's all set. Lastly, avoid the endless media obsession with admission at the top-tier colleges. As has been stated before, this endless speculation, it's fueling an entire industry. There's a lot of people making a lot of money on this stuff. But if there was an answer and anyone knew why one student got in and one student didn't, why are there so many different books with all these competing theories? Nobody knows. And nobody can tell you specifically. So meanwhile, you're reading everything and becoming more and more anxious. When again, I'm going to remind you that 89% of Staples students are getting into one of their top 3 choices. Junior year has earned its reputation as a tough time. But for students, it's also the first chance you've had to think about a future where you have choices. And we as a guidance department believe that the college search and admissions process can be a thoughtful, mindful walk if you take the time to reflect, reconsider, change your mind, and be grateful for the extraordinary wealth of opportunities you have in your future. Thank you.
So we hope that you found the adult perspective valuable, but it's always a pleasure for us to welcome up some of our students, seniors who are not just surviving this experience, but are really thriving and can tell you a little bit about what life at Staples has been like for them and some tips that they may have in the process.
All right. Hi, I'm Evan Shorrock, and I'm going to tell you guys some of the tips I picked up along this process. So the first thing that I did was I made a list. And this was a very vague list based off of schools that pretty much had what I wanted to study and and schools that I could really see myself at. And I want to give you guys a little piece of advice. Keep an open mind. So I went into this process with the mindset that I could not see myself at a small school. There was no way I was going to go to a small school. It just wasn't an option for me. And as I went on more and more of these tours, my parents made me go to a small school just to see if I liked it. And yes. And I ended up loving it. So keep an open mind because you never know what you're going to like, and so it's very important. Also, we talked about it earlier. You want to have that list of targets, reaches, and safeties. And I cannot stress this enough. For the safety schools, don't pick schools that you just are going to throw on your list because you can get into. Find schools that you actually want to go to and you'll be happy at, because you never know. And it's really important to find schools that you'll be happy at, especially because there's so many schools out there, you're going to find something that you're going to like. And as you make that list, you have to pay attention to this. Some schools have certain requirements that other schools don't have. So especially those subject tests, that was something that I wasn't very aware of, and I ended up having to take my subject test very last minute, which I do not recommend for any of you because it can be quite stressful. And as you tour these schools, really just try and get a sense of what your life will be like at these schools. And don't summarize the entire school based off of your tour guide. So the tour guide is just one person telling you about a school. It's not what the school is like, and that is very important. And something that I did that I really recommend is as I toured these schools, I tried to find someone that I knew or a friend of a friend to come and give me a tour. So there was one school that I went to, and I didn't really know many people that went there, but I knew a friend of a friend that I met maybe twice before. And so I called him up. I said, hey, I'm at your campus. Can you just come and give me a really quick tour? I'd love to hear your perspective. And this student came, gave my mom and I a 2.5-hour tour of his campus and told me everything that I needed to know, from what the food was like, how the dorms are, like all the stuff that the tour guide probably won't touch upon. And sure, he might not know what year the school was founded in and who founded it, but those students will really give you a good idea of what the school is actually like. So it doesn't need to be a really close friend. Just find someone that maybe you know through another person or through a friend of a friend of a friend. these students are pretty proud of where they go to school, and they'd be more than happy to give you a tour. So that's something very important too. After these tours, I strongly recommend that you make a pro-con list, because the more and more tours that you go on, you'll find that these schools tend to blur a lot, and it's hard to remember which school had this program or which school had this particular facility. So right after your tour, when everything is still fresh in your brain, write everything down. And it doesn't have to be a pro-con list. It can just be some words that you remember and stuff like that, but it'll be really helpful when you go back and try and remember what was at what place. And also, keeping folders is very important too, because as you write these supplements that go with these applications, they tend to get very scattered, and some are very similar to each other with some differences, and it's very important to just keep all of that organized because it'll save your life later. So, another piece of advice, write your Common App essay in the summer. And I know that sounds horrible. You don't want to spend your summer writing an essay. Not a good time, but trust me, you're going to want to write it during the summer, because I hate to break it to you guys, but senior fall doesn't slow down, so you're going to want to get that over with, because the teachers don't really give time for you to write your essays. You have to do that on your own time, and it can get crazy chaotic, so it would be a really good idea to start that earlier. And don't be afraid to rewrite it. I rewrote my essay multiple times, edited it multiple times, so it's a process, but trust me, it's a process that you're going to want to take your time with. And also, another piece of advice is to show interest. So Staples is pretty awesome, and they invite these college representatives to our school for you to meet. And after, I recommend you can go up and introduce yourself, just get yourself on their radar, because these are the college reps, and they might be the ones reading your application. You never know. So it would be a good idea to just introduce yourself to them. And, I was talking to my sister, who's also a junior, and I was asking her, hey, like, what's something that you're worried about or you have questions about, so I can mention it during my speech. And she said that something that she was worried about, or not so much worried about, but just questioned, was the teacher recommendations. And I know we touched upon that a little bit during the presentation earlier, but I just wanted to give my 2 cents about it. So you're definitely going to want to find the teachers that know you. I personally did not ask the 2 teachers that I had the best grades in. I asked the 2 teachers that knew me the best. And also, after I asked my teachers, I sent them an email. Some teachers will give you something to fill out just so they can understand and know who you are better. But for the teachers that don't, I recommend sending an email out to them, just telling them a little bit about your outside of school life, because they know who you are as a student, and they might not know what clubs you're in or what sports you do or all that other stuff. So it could be a good idea to just shoot out a quick email and let them know a little bit more about yourself, so they can write a more thorough recommendation on your behalf. And now I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, and he'll tell you a little bit more.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ludy, and a lot of my tips are kind of something that Evan already talked about. But when I went around doing the college search process, I definitely do research on what schools you're seeing ahead of time before you visit them, because it was very beneficial to me when I was touring them, being able to know what programs were offered and also what I would like in a university, and also be open-minded, because I think people get fixated on some of the highly competitive, very top universities when there is a university for everyone. And it might not be one that it was on your list at the start, but you might find it and it might be the one for you. And something that was already touched upon a lot, but definitely keep in mind a balanced list. So you want most of your schools to be on target, and you can have some reach schools, but definitely keep in mind who you are and what you want in a school. And definitely find schools that are right for you, not schools that are right for your parents or anything like that, just for you. And something I wish I knew that when I was a junior going into this process is definitely take the advice to start early. I did my essay over the summer, which was really beneficial to me, but I also kind of wish that I started doing the certain aspects of the Common App, like the activities during the summer too. And so I think the earlier you start in the summer during that process, the better it is for the fall when it gets really busy. And also another thing too is being undecided in what your major is totally fine at this point, because so many people get like caught and want to choose what they want to do when you hear friends who already chose But going into schools, you don't even have to decide your majors at a lot of them until the second semester of sophomore year, so you have time to think about it. And another thing is to start visiting the schools early. I know I started in April break of my junior year, and that gave me lots of time to visit the schools that I wanted to, and I was able to look around. And so, yeah, being organized during this process is extremely important. So doing pro-con lists, or even just writing about what you liked, is really important. And I did that on Google Docs, so I would always have them on me, and I could always look around.
That's awesome. Sorry that we saved the best for last year and had listened to us for a long time. Thank you guys. That was amazing. And it's really difficult to know that as hard as you've worked and as many things as you've done throughout your life, that there's a lot in this process that's out of your control, that you're putting sort of your trust in and things to be working out. But you'd be surprised about how much is in your power to control and the choices that you make and thinking about what you want the rest of your high school experience to look like. And so that a year from now, you're able to look back and think, okay, yeah, maybe there's some things that I wish I could go back and do a little bit differently, but overall I feel really good about the choices that I've made. So at this point, we're going to be moving to various classrooms and spaces around the building where you'll be with your school counselor for a question and answer session. The classroom assignments are posted up above here and also in the handout that you got on the way in. So just on behalf of the entire Staples Guidance Department, thank you so much for coming. We wish you absolute best, and we'll look forward to talking with you more in the classroom spaces. Thanks.